Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Should Be Painting. Today we are going to talk about, is Warhammer 40,000 too complicated? Don't forget, once we reach 8,000 subscribers, we are giving away the Indominus box set and the Necron Codex and Space Marine Codex, so please help us out by hitting that subscribe button, not just to grow our channel, but also so you can get free stuff. So is Warhammer 40,000 too complicated? Well, I think that first of all, we need to break down what does complicated mean, and I've broken that down into 3 different talking points. 1, there is complicated from the aspect of the gameplay itself, complicated from the rules, and then complicated for learning about the game and getting into the game. In order to talk about whether or not Warhammer is complicated, I think that we have to compare it to other games. So I'm going to compare it to chess. Chess, of course, is played on a static board where each player has the exact same army, and it is considered an extremely complicated game. I believe the quote is that there are more chess moves than there are stars in the universe. Well, okay, that's interesting, I guess, but it doesn't actually really talk about how complicated it is. There are more atoms inside of an ant than I think there are chess moves. I don't know, you could double check that. The point is, it's an arbitrary level of complication. If we are just gonna go based off of what's more complicated, chess or Warhammer, then by the sheer nature that Warhammer is played on a battlefield where you don't have little squares that you have to stay inside and everything can move from, a fraction of an inch to multiple inches, means that there is an infinite number of complications, an infinite number of moves. So I don't think that that is exactly what we're talking about when we say whether or not the game is complicated. A lot of times when we're talking about complicated, we're talking about the ability to understand the game and the ability to play the game. And again, we have to make a distinction between whether we're doing casual play or whether we're doing a tournament play. And that gets complicated as well, because if you're doing casual play with a stranger at a game store, that's different than doing casual play with your best friend in your basement, at least in terms of how you might interpret the rules. So is Warhammer 40,000, particularly 9th edition, too complicated? Well, I have to say, I think right off the bat, particularly for new players, yes, I think it is too complicated. And I believe that that complication is coming from the sheer number of places that the rules are distributed. If we forget about the gameplay itself and we just take a look at the rules of Warhammer 40,000, can any of you name where you find the full list of rules? Because I couldn't, and I thought that it would be very simple. So I Googled all legal rules for Warhammer 40,000, and it took me to a Goobertown article. I think it was Goobertown. Anyways, I'll link to the article, and they talked about it, and they talked about how there's something like 16 codexes or 16 books available for Space Marines, but they didn't have a full list of rules. So I went to Warhammer Community, and again, I looked for rules. Now, I found the FAQ, and I found a link to a rules page, and that rules page let you download the free version of the core rulebook, but I could not find easily a list of here is every single place where every single active rule is. And to me, that means it's too complicated. The best that I could do was go to the FAQ page and count the number of FAQs that are available, because my assumption is that every place where there is an active rule most likely has been FAQ'd. And there are currently 39 separate FAQ downloads, from FAQs for White Dwarves, to FAQs for codexes, to FAQs to cards. Data cards have an FAQ that came out, actually. So I think that fundamentally Warhammer is too complicated. But is that a bad thing? And I'm gonna say yes and no. I know. What do you want? What do you want from me? Yes and no, it's a bad thing. Why is it a good thing? It's a good thing because it's really fun to be able to take this sort of game and have this huge expansive universe and have all of these different things that you can do, and to be able to dive into very specific armies and get super caught into the minutia of those armies. But it's also a bad thing because it makes it almost impossible for you to really understand the full depth of the game and to really bring that knowledge to bear if you're playing competitively or not. And I think what we've seen in the past, particularly with Iron Hands, is once somebody sort of cracks a code, There's so much stuff out there that it's easier to follow that cracked code to take advantage of those broken rules, such as with Iron Hands, and when we saw tournaments with over 70% of all people showing up with the same list, than it is to try and figure it out yourself, because there's not even a place where you can go and just look up a list of, hey, here's where all the rules are, list of every single White Dwarf, list of every single codex, list of every single supplement, and their associated FAQs. I mean, it just doesn't exist. Now, the Warhammer app might resolve that. I don't think that it has yet, but the bottom line is that there is a tremendous amount of rules. So from a rule perspective, Games Workshop needs to consolidate and organize and provide a place where we can see all of the rules for all of the armies and all of the supplements on one page. That needs to happen. Second part of complicated. Is Warhammer 40k 9th Ed complicated to play? Well, that's a different question. And the reason why it's a different question is because, again, there are two different types of complicated. If you're playing a specific game, then you don't need to worry about all of the different codexes for all of the armies that are not in that game, right? Like, you don't need to know orcs if orcs have nothing to do with the battle that you're playing. You don't need to know, Space Marines if Space Marines aren't being played. There is also an assumption in a casual game that both players are going to come with an understanding of the general rules, and then each individual player will have the understanding of their own specific rules and will be able to express that to the other player. That, of course, reduces the amount of complexity for each player coming to the game if there is this social contract that both people should know their own army and be able to express how that army works. Of course, that gets complicated because you wind up with gotcha moments and you didn't understand that particular things can happen, and you weren't necessarily aware of how different things might interact, like a stratagem along with a special rule for a round, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, that can make things too complicated as well. On top of that, Games Workshop has added a whole bunch of rules for scenarios, they've added data cards, they've added mission packs, they've added rules for terrain. So I think no matter how you break it down, right now, as it stands, even just to play, excluding knowing the specific rules for every army, I do think that Warhammer 40,000 is maybe a little bit too complicated. That doesn't mean that I don't like it. I love it, and I'm happy to go into those rules, and I want to keep reading the FAQs, but I do feel a little bit overwhelmed by it. And if you're a new player, you might feel really overwhelmed by it because you want to be able to find things and understand how they work, and you might not know that there's a supplement called Psychic Awakening that is affecting the rules of your new army. And you might not know that that Psychic Awakening has an errata that changes one of the fundamental rules that you thought that you already knew. So is Warhammer 40,000 9th Ed too complicated? Yes. So what can we do about it? Well, there are two things that we can do about it. One, we can tell Games Workshop, or we can express to Games Workshop that we would like a consolidated list of rules. For example, we could say, can you please create a website where you simply list all of the relevant, all of the legal codexes in the same way that Magic does for Standard, where it says, here are all the standard sets that are legal, here are all the modern sets that are legal, here is where all the rules are from every single White Dwarf to every single codex to every single supplement in one place so that you can easily review it. And then two, we can all be good citizens, we can all be good gamers, and we can make sure that we understand at least the fundamental rules that we have access to and the specific rules that we are playing for our army. So those are the two things that we can do to help make sure that playing Warhammer 40,000, even though it is complicated, is still fun for everybody. A little bit of personal responsibility and a little bit of request from help from Games Workshop. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Maybe you think I'm crazy and you have a better memory than I, and that complication is fantastic, and that it's actually not too complicated once you get to know it. Things are very easy to remember. Let me know. I'll talk to you about it. We're also going to be live streaming. We'll talk about it there as well. As always, we're going to take a look at my 3 featured creators this week. I'm very excited for the 3 creators. We have somebody returning whose work is literally masterclass. She is a masterclass painter. She has won numerous prestigious awards, and we're going to be taking a look at one of her new pieces, which is very exciting for me. And we're also going to take a look at her Etsy, where you can buy some of her non-miniature related art because she creates fantastic art as well. So let's head on over to the computer and take a look at my 3 featured creators for this week. Well, here we are once again at the computer, and we are starting out on Facebook with some X-Wing. We are taking a look at Brandon Pauly's shuttle. And the reason why we're taking a look at this is because it is one of the expressions of when you're able to do really, really clear inking and clear lining. It just takes something and it elevates it to the next level, specifically when looking at the engine, and these red lines are so clean, they're so clear, they're so crisp, it just looks absolutely incredible. And we're not talking about wet blending or, non-metallic metals. It's just simple, elegant, and beautiful. So this project really stood out to me. Thank you so much, Brandon, for allowing me to share it. It's very inspiring. I kind of want to bust out one of my shuttles and paint it like that, but I don't know if I have the line control that you do, but it's amazing. Next, we are moving to Instagram, and we're going to be taking a look at Kat Martin. Now, as you can see, Kat Martin is a masterclass miniature painter. She has won numerous awards. I think we even did an interview with her after one of the Adepticons several years ago. I'll try to find a link for that and stick it up over there. But here is her new project, and boy oh boy, is it gorgeous. From the painting on the background to the model itself, the way that the cloth falls, the difference in color where you have this clear definition between light and shadow. It's amazing. I particularly like the way the foliage almost, like, it's hard to tell where the painting in the background and the foliage starts coming out. Just absolutely incredible work. If you don't know who Kat Martin is, you should. So head on over to her Instagram and give her a follow. And then on top of that, she also makes fine art prints on Etsy under the same name as her Instagram name, and I will link that below. I have purchased one of these, and it is really pretty. It makes a fantastic gift, particularly a gift for somebody who maybe doesn't necessarily want a miniature, but wants something kind of cool and awesome. So these prints are really pretty. I purchased this one right here. She has another one up for sale, and she's got a bunch of, her average rating is 5 stars. Like, let's just leave it at that. That's pretty awesome. Kat, you're amazing. Thank you so much for letting me share your work. As always, amazing. Lastly, we are heading over to Creative Storm Studio. If you are looking for a commission painter, Creative Storm Studio is open and available. She is a good friend of mine, and she has been doing amazing work. Like, just take a look at this project. I mean, I don't even know what to say. The transition of color, the ability to get the OSL just right so that you see the fading from the wings. It's one of the most beautiful demon models that I've ever seen. She will do individual models, and she will also do entire armies. This is some Dungeons and Dragons models that she's been working on, and recently she also did a giant Knights army in black and yellow. And for anybody who's tried to paint yellow would be hard. It's hard. And she pulled it off flawlessly. So if you are looking for a commission painter, I strongly recommend that you check out Creative Storm Studios, send her a message, and she will give you a quote. Well, once again, thank you all for tuning in to I Should Be Painting. We are getting set for our Sunday night live stream right now. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to like and subscribe, hit that bell button. If you want a chance to win the Indominus box set and the 2 books, the Necron book and the Space Marine book, help us get to 8,000 subscribers. If you've watched all the way to the end and you're not a subscriber, you should really consider subscribing, because you might like this channel more than just for a free giveaway. And as always, we'll see you on the table.